That's not the story I think that they want to hear. The story that I would like to tell about Bruce that I think means more to me than anything else had to do with my senior year in high school. And I'll set the tone by telling you that my dad had his own small business, and that year was not a very good year. I went through my entire senior year with 2 pairs of pants and 2 shirts. I happened to win the state high school freestyle wrestling championship, and I got the opportunity to go to Iran, of all places. Other states got to go to Pennsylvania, or Pennsylvania got to go to Germany, we got to go to Iran, but that was the prize. Anyway, I needed about $1,800 to go. So the school raised money for me. They had a couple of fundraisers, people gave some money, and it got down to where it was about a week to go before I had to send in this check to be able to go to represent my state and country in Iran, and I didn't have the money. And Bruce Shelley, bless his heart, found out, walked up to me one day, wrote out a check for $200, but if you remember what teachers made in those days, he was probably giving me about 5% of his disposable income for the year. Wrote me a check for $200 and sent me off to Iran. I was, I'll tell you, obviously grateful, relieved, and just totally embarrassed as hell because I was in that sort of situation. And he never said anything at all to me about it until I got back, got a job, and it was really important to me that, that I paid him back. And I showed up, someplace at the high school about the 1st of July or thereabouts after I was back, 1st of August, and I said, had $200 in my hand, and I said, Mr. Shelley, I really appreciate it. You raised the money for me, or gave me the money, and I said, I'm able to repay you. And he looks at me and he says, I don't want the money back. And he says, there's only one way that you can repay me, Herb. He said, someday you're going to grow up and you will have an opportunity to do for some other kid what I've done for you. And I want you to pay me back by doing that same thing for somebody else. Now, I will tell you that over the years, I have more than paid back that $200 to Bruce. And I've always told that story to every kid that I gave the money to, whether it be for softball or, some other silly thing that kids do. But to me, Bruce Shelley we were all his kids. And he never had any of his own, but he had thousands, in my opinion, of people that he touched and made better people up. At the same time that he was beating into our heads how to be one of, if not the best choirs in the state of Ohio, even with some of the most imperfect talent that any choir director ever suffered through. But, to me, it was the fact that he would do stuff like that and never tell a soul. The guy never had any money, but how many of you got free shoes? How many of you got, this, that, or the other things? How many times did he drive you somewhere? Okay, for contests or whatever. There was always money to go out for ice cream. McDonald's.
Barn Hills.
Barn Hills. After, that sort of stuff. And to me, that was the measure of the guy. Was the fact that there were so many of us that were so different, in all different ways. And Bruce didn't care about any of that. All he cared about was making us better people. And to this day, he is one of the defining figures in my life, up there with a couple of football coaches, so there's a pretty broad spectrum here. But by the same token, I just love the guy. And the other thing that always struck me is that he lived in North Canton, and I would see him at the shopping center or going for groceries or something. And the amazing thing was that every time I had something new or different or important that had happened in my life, the guy always knew about it before I told him. Okay? And it, you know, he knew when I had my kids, he knew when this happened.